Hey, Booger with Booger and Zeke's Welding Emporium. Today I've got some happy news, an update on my Prime Weld MIG 180 welder. It turns out that the welder itself, the box, was perfectly fine. It seems that they had a number of switches in the gun that were not making full contact. I wasn't the only one who reached out to Prime Weld with this issue, so they were able to diagnose it through some of the other customers. So what Prime Weld did, kudos to them, is they sent me a whole new gun, and I've done some welding with it and everything works. So just a big thanks to Prime Weld for getting things taken care of so quickly, and actually with zero hassle on my end. I did not have to send everything back. I had it boxed up and ready to go. Didn't have to do that. And so now I have a working welder, and I was only out of commission with the Prime Weld for about for a couple of days. So, you know, like I said in my earlier video, these things do happen. Maybe I'm more tolerant about it than other folks are. But look, the thing is that they got on it quickly. They took care of it. They were highly responsive. And now I have a welder that works. So I'm very happy about that. The customer service with those guys, I've been dealing with them for, I can't remember, maybe a year, maybe less than a year. I can't remember, but every time I call them, it's fantastic. So, with a standard 3-year warranty, and I swear to God, I'm not a salesman for them. I've bought everything with my own money. So, you know, there are a lot of people who are sitting there looking at all of these same welders that I did, and I talked about this in the other video. And some of them, you know, don't have warranty, or they have a very short warranty, or the customer service doesn't seem to be particularly good. I think that is something. Both of those things are things where Prime Weld absolutely excels, in my opinion. So that's worth it. All right, so I have done some welding, a little bit of welding. I'm not going to show any of it right now on the video because, frankly, I don't really know how to do that. I don't have an assistant. I have a tripod for holding my phone that's made out of vice grips and a drill press vise. And I don't have a special camera, so I don't really think that any videos of me actually doing welding would turn out well because of the exposure on the camera. What I can do is show you some of the results. Again, just trying to figure this machine out, looking at the settings, the manufacturer settings from this, if you remember that. Fundamentally, I think the way that it's working right now for me is that the voltage settings seem to be a little on the low end. The standard settings seem to be a little on the low end, and so I'm getting a lot of cold, you know, getting a lot of these cold welds, if you will. And once I bump the voltage up a bit, then things seem to flatten out, and I feel like I'm getting more penetration. These are all really ugly. I've got some fat caterpillars. I'm not going to really zoom in on them. You know, I finally got this one dialed in. This one, it's 1/8, and I wasn't really paying attention. I didn't think I didn't intend to grab 1/8 for my initial welds, and so I started. What did I start with? I think I started with 16 or 14 gauge settings for my initial settings, and so those look like little worms here because it was nowhere near hot enough. And as I started to move away from this and just cranked it up based on what I was seeing, I eventually got to a point where I was getting better welds. There's some of the funny brown stuff that appears on one side. I'm not real sure what that's coming from. I haven't seen that before. I get it a lot in my TIG because I suck at TIG welding, but I see it a lot in my TIG. I've got the gas settings where they're supposed to be, so I should be getting good coverage, and I don't get this brown stuff with every weld. I think it's perhaps something with everything being brand new, maybe with the gas and everything running in, because as I started going, I started seeing less and less of that stuff. But anyway, it does weld quite nicely. The feed seems to be nice and smooth and consistent. I did move from the 1/8 into some thinner stuff, 20 gauge, and you can see got a little overly hot because I did get some overly aggressive penetration, or almost burn through, or actually it was burned through. But eventually I started finding the settings that seemed to work best for me. But like I said, for me, I think a little bit higher voltage than what's on the chart so far, and I'm running 030, wire. But so far I'm pleased. Now, I did move up to, this is 3/16, and again, kind of just playing with the settings, started getting the welds to flatten out a little bit more. Not quite the pregnant caterpillars. So I feel good about these. So anyway, at least so far. Now, I have yet to do the spool gun. That'll be the next thing that I do, and next thing that I video. But I actually do have a couple projects that I want to work on with the MIG on just steel wire, and get that out of the way before I start messing with some of these things. Now, I do want to continue with a couple other quirks and features that I have found now that I've been working with this. Let's start with the gun, and I don't know if I mentioned this originally. This doesn't have to do with operation, but when this came, the contact tip was tightened down like, I mean, it was really cranked down. So if you want to change the contact tip originally, or when you first get it, or maybe it loosens up over time, I don't know. But boy, I had to get a pair of vice grips here on the nozzle, and then a pair of other pliers, get my MIG pliers on here, and it took a bit of effort. Now, when I was doing that, I found out something interesting. So you get a little tool to go along with it, and of course one of these changes the tip, because you've got flats on the sides of these tips, on the OEM tips. But one of the things I did find interesting is that none of these fit the actual nozzle. So if you need to change or tighten the nozzle, even though there are flats on here, this tool isn't going to do you any good. You're still going to have to get another tool from your own toolbox, whether it's pliers or vice grip or whatever, to tighten that thing down. So really minor. I just thought that was kind of an interesting thing. Okay, moving to the box, and again, forgive me since I'm not so great with the how the video works. I'm probably just going to do this. I'll turn it on because I did have somebody comment about they were disappointed that I didn't turn it on. So I turned it on. The fan, it's a little on the loud side. It's not horrendous in my opinion, but I also have a bit of hearing loss. So there's things that, you know, I have reduced sensitivity to some of the noise, so that may or may not be an issue for others, but certainly not to me. Again, the gun fits, as I talked about earlier. You've got your cable. I did go ahead and put on the prime weld regulator because of the way that I like, you know, when I talked about the sight glass and being able to swivel that sight glass or rotate that sight glass. So I did put that on. One of the things that I realized about this, and I liked, again, another thing I like about this regulator over the one that I had, is that in order for me to use the quick disconnects that I have, you know, this is a two-piece unit, right? You've got this part that goes on one end, usually the hose itself, and then the other part which goes into your fixture, your machine, or your tank, or whatever it is. So on my other regulator, I had to actually have an adapter to go from the way the regulator was threaded onto the other end of this. This had this regulator had that adapter with it, and it's not so much an adapter because it's already threaded for the same thread size. So again, really minor. I know I keep talking about this simple little regulator, but for me, there were just some neat touches that I liked. I'll plug this back in. Whoops. Here we go. Let's see. What else? It seems like there was something else I wanted to point out. Oh, I know what it was. So let me turn this off because I don't like doing anything when it's on. Call me a scaredy cat. That's fine. All right. So as you can see, I've got the bigger spool in now. To tighten the spool, to tighten not tighten it onto the actual mount or onto the plastic spool holder, but to tighten the resistance when it rotates, there's this odd nut thing in there that it's got a spring behind it, so you've got to tighten that thing. I don't have a tool. It's too tight for my fingers to fit in there. I don't know what tool. I guess maybe my MIG pliers will get in there, but I think it's plastic, and so I'm afraid of using that tool too much and eventually destroying or damaging that thing. That's a little odd to me, and again, another thing to kind of to deal with. Not anything critical, obviously. There, get that back in there. One of the things I mentioned is how tight the space this is. You get an idea of how little room there is for you to actually thread the wire. Which does remind me of another thing that I want to cover. If you fire this thing up for the first time, turn it on, and you set your wire speed, and you're feeding it through the gun, or you're just trying to kind of check the wire speed out without welding. You're just holding up the gun. Here's what's happened. You may end up getting confused if you haven't seen this before. I kind of figured it out. I should have read the manual. And by the way, I will tell you, this is dealt with. This is discussed. Page 25 of the manual right here, where it discusses quick wire feed function. So when you first pull the trigger, when you're not welding, the wire feeds fairly slow. And then after a few seconds of holding the trigger down, it just goes full speed. I've seen this feature in others. It's an intentional thing to help speed when you're feeding new wire in, to try to get it through the gun as quickly as possible and just speed it through. The machine knows that you're not welding. It has some sensing circuitry to know that it's okay to feed at that speed. But you cannot adjust it. When it's doing that, the wire speed, the wire feed speed, I keep wanting to say indicator, knob, it doesn't do anything. And it also doesn't do anything before it starts that high-speed feed. So, you know, it's more sophisticated, I guess, than the units I've used before, where you could always adjust your speed and you would always see it, and you could, you know, kind of see what's going on without welding. Now, when you're welding, then the speed adjustment works correctly, and you do get changes in the speed based on your setting. But it took me a second, and admittedly, I had to call PrimeWeld and confirm that, because although the manual seems to be pretty well written, and it does appear to be written in good English, actually, I didn't quite expect to see it there where it was. I'm not sure where I did expect it, but anyway, so so far, after my first couple hours with this, I'm happy. Everything is working well as far as I know. I do still need to try the spool gun, but I would not expect to have any issues there. Looking forward to that. I feel like the welds are quite good, even though I'm, you know, again, still trying to tinker with getting accustomed to these particular settings. I am running everything off of 220. I guess I should have said that at the beginning. You do get the adapter, the 120 plug adapter, but I'm running it off of 220 that I have here in the shop. That's about it for the moment. If anybody has any questions, please contact me. I also want to say thank you to our 6 new subscribers. We went from 0 to 6, and you know, the next step is world domination, I'm fairly certain. So anyway, thank you very much, and look forward to the next video with you.